What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York, and on the phone we got Sean from River Cult. Thank you so much for your time today, man. Good to talk to a fellow New Yorker during this uncertain time.
Totally. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's so awesome to have you here. So the newest album that you released is Chilling Effect, which just came out this past Friday. You just want to talk about like how the making of this record was and like the recording and songwriting, mixing, all that fun stuff?
Yeah, for sure. So we went with the same engineer that we had do our first album, Halcyon Days, Charles Burst. He's got a studio in South Slope called Seaside Lounge. He had some weird complications with the building his studio is in, so we ended up using him but recording at a different spot in Greenpoint called the Creamery. And generally when we record, we practice a lot leading up to it. We do a demo and kind of work out all the kinks and really try to just bang it out. This record and the last record we did in 3 days. We basically did all the takes live as a band, and we basically set up and do those on the first day. And then the next day we do vocals and some overdubs, generally pretty minimal on the overdubs, and then we spend most of the last day mixing. And so, we try to do most of the work before going in, so it's kind of smooth. And we really do kind of, we try to capture the live aesthetic, with minimal tracking or overdubs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's fair to say you try to take like the simplest approach. You said you had all this done in 3 days. That's like rare to hear nowadays.
Yeah, I completely understand people who like to track and do it in a different way. That's like totally cool. It's just for us, this makes sense. I think the danger when you do a lot of tracking and you take too much time is sometimes it's just like never ending. You know what I mean? Like you talk to people who are recording and it's just like, wow, they're still recording,
Yeah.
So we like to take the kind of old school approach and just kind of bang it out.
Yeah, fair enough. Does that help make like this album a little bit more consistent too? If you kind of like end the same way making the album as you did when you started it?
I think so, definitely. I think this one has a little bit of a different sound than the last one, but it's in the same ballpark for sure. And I think we've been together since 2015, so we have a good rapport with each other playing, and so I like to capture that instead of kind of getting everything down perfect with tracking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, were you planning to make just a direct follow-up to Halcyon Days, or did you intend for it to be like somewhat different?
What do you mean in terms of just the end result sound?
Yeah, the end result sound or the concept or anything like that.
We just kind of write organically without thinking too much about it, but I think naturally we kind of evolved a little bit after a few years. Like we added more synth on this album. The first track, Chilling Effect, has a long synth intro that our drummer Tav did. And like on the last album, there was one part that we added a little synth, and on this one we did like vocal doubling on a few tracks, which was something we talked about doing. And so I guess it's a mix. It's a mix between organically kind of just changing and then, maybe like the synth thing and the vocal doubling and a little bit more overdubs in this album was kind of like, okay, for this album, let's try some new things.
Interesting. Well, I do consider, especially with this album, to be, fairly experimental. I thought, Left Hand Path is different from a song like Neo Dog, different from, a song like Fool's Gold or something like that. So I think, trying new things is almost, part of the formula for River Cult in a way, right?
Yeah, totally. We definitely, I think that there's a cohesive whole to the album, but you're right. If you listen to the different tracks, it could almost be surprising they're on the same album. But I think we all have a lot of different influences, and it's kind of rooted in that stonery, stoner metal, stoner rock, psychedelic sound. But yeah, I'm glad to hear you say it comes across as experimental. We definitely try to incorporate that.
Yeah, I mean, just we need to go over like in New York City, like we have like a huge like doom scene in general, like with you guys, and I'd imagine you know the guys in Godmaker, and Funeral
Not
Leech.
personally, actually.
Oh, really? I'm surprised you guys
Yeah,
didn't play
no,
a show
no.
together.
No, not yet. Not yet. Funeral Leech just came out with a really good new album.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, is there currently like a scene that you're active in through New York City, like for your style? Like, I was hoping to maybe see you guys at like a Saint Vitus or Lucky 13 or Gold Sounds or Kingsland or something like that.
Yeah, we played Kingsland maybe like 4 months ago with Brant Bjork
Hmm.
and Ecstatic Vision. Those are out of town bands, but Lucky 13 we played before with like Eternal Black. You know those guys?
Yeah.
We play with them. We play with Matt Black. We have friends who are not super local. They're in New Paltz, but they come down a lot. It's not Night at Space.
Hmm.
And so yeah, we've got our regular people we play with, but yeah, in terms of shows, we've I mean, obviously right now no one's playing shows, and plans of booking shows are kind of on hiatus. But these days we play less and kind of wait for maybe like a touring band to jump on the bill. So yeah, we're kind of taking it a little slower in terms of local live shows.
That's a good idea. I mean, the more you play your hometown, I think like, or the less you play your hometown, the actual better. You kind of got to make people miss you. You don't want to just be that band
Yeah,
that plays in the same town every week.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
When it comes to playing your material live, is there kind of like a similar energy into playing live as you do when you're in songwriting mode? Like, do you try to execute the material exactly how people are hearing it on the album in a way, or do you try to maybe mix things up in the live presence a little bit more?
So I think, at least for my parts, certain solos and like licks on the album are worked out, and each like take Chilling Effect for example. There's like the longest solo. There's parts of it that are like set parts, but a lot of it is improvised. And I'll do it pretty similar, but not exactly note for note. If you hear it, say around when the album came out, but then like a year later, if we're still playing the same song, I'm probably still totally recognizable, but switching things up and adding things. So the songs do change a little bit organically as we play, just because there is some improvisation with our songs. A song like Neo Dog will probably be pretty similar. That's more straightforward. But on the songs where we kind of stretch a bit, they do evolve. So I think it probably just depends when you're seeing it and how close it was to the recording.
Yeah. Do you like have a background in theory? Like, are you like going in knowing what scale you're working off of or key, or are you more self-taught in a way?
I'm more self-taught. I think that goes for all three of us. I probably have personally the least technical theory knowledge, but we're all pretty much in the same ballpark there. I actually took guitar lessons as a kid and stopped because I was just like terrible and like didn't want to learn the scales. And didn't really get serious with it till like 17, where I just got interested by like teaching myself chords and trying to learn songs and writing my own songs. So yeah, I'd have to like, I often have, unless it's like E or something simple, I have to kind of be like, wait, what scale am I in? I'm more of like an organic player who taught myself.
Well, and I hear that in your music, actually. Like, it's very raw and very organic, so it almost seems like everything naturally fell into place. Do you almost, like, feel like it's easier for you to come up with ideas when you're, like, alone in isolation? Isolation's always been the best fuel for creativity, but, like, or do you find it easier to write music when you're in the company of your other bandmates?
I think that coming up with the first idea is easier on your own. Like I often will, I mean, the way we write is usually either Anthony, the bass player, or I will come in with at least one riff or part of a song, and then we work on it together. And personally, for me, it's like I'll usually come up with maybe like a verse chorus, and maybe some idea for a bridge. And then I'll take that to the band, and then like at that moment, I much more so enjoy working with them. And then Anthony will suggest some change, that I didn't think of. And then, if you can't figure out where to go next in a song, having your bandmate suggest something. And our drummer Tav is also a guitar player, so he knows melodic stuff as well. So once you get the foundation of something, then I like working with people for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, like one thing I was curious about is there ever a time where maybe a story or a concept could determine the outcome of the music as well, or are lyrics always kind of like the last thing to come into play?
Yeah, that's more sort of the end with I would say the lyrics, bringing that sort of element into it. If I'm understanding the question.
Yeah, yeah. There's never a time where like a story or like a lyrical idea can maybe help shape the composition or the sound of the music.
For us, that really comes later. I'm a very lazy vocalist and lyric writer. I think my voice is like just hackable, and like I'd rather not. I like a three piece, and then and so I sing and write the lyrics, but I'm kind of like I do it almost begrudgingly is too strong of a word. But for example, Neo Dog, we had that song written for forever before I finally wrote the lyrics, and like the bandmates were like, "What's the song called? What are the lyrics? Come on!" And then I finally do it. But yeah, so that's often much later, or usually much later.
Did you have a name for Neo Dog like before like you even had the title? Like what were you calling it? Like just so they knew what.
Well, it's funny you ask that because Neo Dog was actually a joke title, and then it just stuck. Like Neo Dog was the name of this speaker that came in an amp that I had, and then I sold to Anthony, my bass player, an old Laney combo amp that someone changed the speaker. It was a Vox Neo Dog. So we thought that was funny, and we were just calling the song Neo Dog. But then coincidentally, when I started writing lyrics to it, it's about like aging, so it kind of made sense, and then so we just kept the name.
Isn't that amazing? Like when something starts off as a joke, but then it ends up being something amazing. Like that's how Sweet Child O' Mine came to be.
Right. Yeah. No. That's. I feel like that's often makes things more interesting.
Yeah.
For sure.
Now, I mean, here comes the most difficult part of the whole interview, but when you have a song like Chilling Effect that's 11 and a half minutes and Neo Dog that's just a little over 3 minutes and then Fool's Gold that's like under 8 minutes, like how do you know when a song is exactly done?
Yeah, that's it's tricky. I mean, it's obviously it depends on each specific instance. I feel like I'm the one that's pushing to make a song longer, and Anthony is the one to be like, wait, let's make it more concise. But for Neo Dog, it was it felt like a concise rock song, and then like Chilling Effect. It's interesting because that song could have been because it starts with a like a bluesy verse, and then it goes into a chorus, and it goes into a bridge, and then like it could end. But I don't know. I just like to map songs out like that and add the intro with the synth. And I think a lot of what I write comes from what I like listening to. I listen to a lot of bands that are more experimental, long songs. But you could always fly too close to the sun with that because you can have stuff that's just way too all over the place, and it's like a 20-minute long song, and you're just like, what the hell, where did this go, But so it's kind of a balance that balances out with, like I said, Anthony might want to make something shorter, I might want to make something longer, and having differences like that kind of works in the long run.
Yeah, and you don't want to be like I saw the best meme ever one day saying like 40 minutes late to a progressive metal show, made it before the first song ends.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And the final question I wanted to ask you is, we touched upon it a little bit already, but like the New York City scene that, it's where where you and I are cutting our teeth in right now. And, like, what is your take on the New York City scene nowadays with amazing venues like St. Vitus or Lucky 13 or the Kingsland and, of course, having so many Live Nation venues? Would you consider the scene to be rather thriving here in New York City at the moment before, this whole virus that shall not be named invaded us?
Yes and no. I really lament the loss of the Acheron. Did you used to go there?
It closed right when I was getting into the scene.
Okay, yeah. So basically, when River Cult was starting, there was a big change in venues closing, and I kind of lost a lot of my connections with venues and getting shows. And St. Vitus is still here, which is great. But so for me, it's like it's kind of weird still. And I don't know. I feel like there is a lot of great music in New York, but it's not like this big happy, like loving family necessarily. And not that people are maybe doing that on purpose. It's just such a big city and so much stuff is going on. People are a little competitive. And like I have my friends in music and stuff like that, but I wouldn't say that we necessarily feel like we're a part of this big thriving like scene.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that doesn't sound too like negative, but
No, I mean, we're not one big happy family. We're one big dysfunctional family. And
right, sure.
yeah. But I mean, even with the curse of venues closing, there's also a lot of places opening up, and which I think is great. So
Totally, yeah. We played the Kingsland, like I said, which a lot more shows are happening there. Had a few offers at Gold Sounds, but weren't able to make it work. St. Vitus is great, and then there's more like bigger mid-level places. Like, have you been to Elsewhere?
yeah, I love that place.
That place is really cool. We've seen High on Fire, I think, there. I've seen Boris there. So they're getting cool shows. Brooklyn Steel is picking up some heavier shows. So, I mean, in terms of being, I would say in terms of like being in a band, the answer is complicated. But in terms of going to shows, I would say for sure. New York is great.
Yeah, people want to say like New York City metal is dead because we don't have CBGBs or Lemoores or Wetlands anymore. But I mean, have you been to the new places that exist now?
Right, yeah, no, of course. I mean, New York City really does have a scene for everything. You might just have to look a little deeper, than just a few quick searches or whatever, for sure.
Yeah, I tell somebody that, like, New York City has a great metal scene who doesn't live here, and then they assume, like, the second they cross the George Washington Bridge, it's, like, one big Ozfest, and, like, it doesn't work.
Right, exactly. You got to dig a little.
Yeah. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Is there just anything else with River Cult that you would like to promote in terms of, like, obviously, again, thanks to a virus that shall not be named. I don't want to give it any promotion. Is there just is there just anything with River Cult that you would like to promote?
Just, because of what shall not be named, nothing in terms of any live events right now. But, head over to our Bandcamp, you can stream it for free, and you can pay to download it or purchase the vinyl put out by Nestoni Records. And TP helped us out with the digital distribution. And just, go check it out, listen to it, and buy it. That's basically it.
Yep, buy it now while supplies last forever.
Yeah. It's limited to 300, and actually, because of what's going on, I think our label's based in Berlin, and they're having some issues with mail, so they actually sent us more than we were supposed to get. So we've got a good chunk of them, but it is limited. So yeah, act now.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody. River Cult. Be sure to pick up Chilling Effect. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We'll see you next time.